on a regular. Okay, you'll get half of this. Yeah, particularly in our L&D lounge, but also emails that we receive and phone calls with talking with our members. The topic of mental health keeps popping up more and more lately. So we sort of thought this was a very timely masterclass with Beck, just to talk about some of those challenges with other people that get what we go through. For example, you know, we're missing that face-to-face delivery. We're, you know, getting work cancelled. We don't know when we're going to get more work, loss of income, the uncertainty, you know, and even the latest lockdown, for some reason, our members are sort of saying this has impacted on them more than what any of the others have. So I think it's sort of, we know what's coming and it's just that repeat. And as trainers or facilitators or L&D professionals, we're always putting a mask on so that we put on that positive front for everybody that we're dealing with. But you know, today is a timely reminder that we have to look after ourselves as well. So once again, I'm grateful for Beck for running this session and giving us some tips on how to look after ourselves and build resilience. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to our COO, Bill Gerard. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Kerry, and thanks, Sally, for reminding me about the recording as well. And welcome, everybody. I'd just like to, again, turn it over to Beck as quickly as I can. But before I do that, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm located today, the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and recognizing their continuing connection to land, water, culture, and community. So welcome, everybody. This is a special session, I think, and one that is very timely. And Kerry's given a brilliant introduction to it. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Beck, to guide us through the process.
Okay, so thank you. I wanted just to start by acknowledging ILP because this is a really important topic and one that it's brilliant to see that an organisation like ILP is investing in our members by taking some time to discuss our well-being. And I think that's really important because while we all know that there's been a lot going on with COVID and there's certainly a lot of different organisations, different roles that we know that have been affected. We know that hospitality, tourism, certainly retail have all been really affected. Our industry has also been affected as well. And when it comes to education as a whole, that adult learning space in many aspects, in many ways, has been affected more so than other areas of the education space. So we spend a lot of our time doing all things for all people. Today is an opportunity for us just to have an hour or so, 70 minutes to focus ourselves internally. I really do encourage everyone to just use this as an opportunity to think about your own well-being, to think about where you're at. And I spoke to one of my colleagues in the UK the other day, and they were telling me it wasn't until even just last week they realized that they're not doing as well as they thought they were doing. And we're so used to just pushing on and pushing on. So on that note, please, as I said, take this opportunity to spend a bit of time focusing your attention on yourselves and just put away, if you can, any other distractions that might stop you from doing that as well. So as I said, we know that there's a lot of change in our industry. And I don't need to go through all the impacting factors when it comes to our mental health, but there are a few that I think are really important. So uncertainty, we're currently experiencing a lot of uncertainty in our industry. And also the fact that not just that, we're also experiencing the future uncertainty as well. We don't know what the learning industry is going to look like at the end of this year, in a year's time, 2 years' time. Now, there's always been that case because we are really getting to use some amazing technologies, and that in itself is changing our industry, but certainly it's changing in a different way. This certainly has a different feel to it. The other thing is our changing skill sets. So some of us have been working online and in this space for a while, but others of us, this is a new skill set for us. More so than just the skill sets that we recognize is the fact that for some of us, what becomes more important than even being able to do what we do is being able to market ourselves well and getting on social media, and Con's your expert there. But all of these sorts of skills now become even more important. And for a lot of us that have been doing what we do for a long time, they're new and changing skill sets, and that can be quite daunting. But the last one I think is really important, and this is the conversation I was having with my colleague in the UK the other day, which is we have this sense that we're meant to know it because we spend often a lot of our time going through leadership programs or coaching or whatever we might be doing, being the experts in our field. So when we get a sense that we're not doing okay, there's often guilt associated with that as well. So allowing ourselves to feel that way. I actually laugh at this one because not only do we feel like we're meant to know it, but often the people around us feel like we're meant to know it as well. And even the other day I had this discussion with my husband, and we were sort of heatedly debating something, I suppose is the way to describe it. And he said, well, listen to you, you're the expert in this, so listen to how you're talking to me. And I laughed at that because just because we know it doesn't mean we can't experience it as well. And I think allowing ourselves to recognize that's really important. So we know this saying, the cobbler's children have no shoes. And I think it's really similar in our industry as well. The learning and development industry, we are often the caregivers. We give everything to everyone else, and that means we have nothing left for ourselves. So just imagine that we are that jug of water, and every time we pour out that jug to all the other people around that need our support, the jug's getting emptier and emptier and emptier. What are we then doing to fill that jug back up so that when we need something, when our resilience is being tested, we've got something there? Okay, so I'm going to start off our session today talking about the ways in which we might do anxiety or other mental health challenges. And I use the word do deliberately because in the sort of 10 years or so of study that I've had in the mental health space, I've come out as a strategic psychotherapist. And as a strategic psychotherapist, what I do is I work with people around patterns. And I basically describe that everything we do is a pattern or a process, and it's about changing those processes. So rather than anxiety being something that we experience, which takes away our control, people like myself, strategic psychotherapists, talk about anxiety as something that we do, and in that we get back control and we can work on, and what I do with my clients is work on changing those processes. And because this is a person-centered therapy, we use all of these different modalities, things like CBT. We're going to talk positive psychology today, coaching. People love the hypnotherapy. That's the one that often gets the conversation. But all of these modalities then link into that. So given that anxiety and panic disorders and lowness and all of these things that we experience is something that, as a strategic psychotherapist, I would describe as something that we do. In what ways do we do that then? And I just wanted to actually, before I mention that, is talk about if it is something, it is a process, then all of this is about changing our processes. So if you imagine that as water runs down a mountain, it creates grooves in the mountain, and over time, every time it rains, the water runs down the mountain the same way because it's the fastest way to the bottom. And that's what happens with our processes as well. Everything we do is about the quickest, the easiest way to do things. It's why we end up destroying our backs by just reaching down and grabbing a pen rather than actually squatting down, which we should be doing, because it's easier just to reach down. When we change our processes, and we know that might take 21 days or 70 days or however long, depending on which sites we listen to, the more we do change those processes, the stronger those new grooves get, or in neuroscience, the neural pathways get, and that allows us to change the way we do things. So in anxiety, for example, one of the ways that you might experience anxiety or panic or stress is through a feeling or a sense of a lack of control. Or if you're experiencing that external locus of control where you think that everything is happening to you. So you might hear that language where you say, oh, can't believe I'm in lockdown because this person locked me down, and COVID's happening to me, and now I can't go visit my family in the UK, or all of these sorts of things. As we know, that's an external locus of control, and if we focus on the things we can't change, it gets rid of our power. But we can bring that control back as well. So the next one is a low tolerance for ambiguity. So that's just the fact that when we think about this unknown space that we're in, we often think about it as a negative and that it's a risk. And it really links into that negative expectancy there, which is that future orientation, that rumination, all the rest. With control, this is a really interesting one, because regardless of whatever situation we're in, there's always things that we can control, as we know. And it's just about recognizing that all of our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our reactions, they're always within our control. And the more that we work on focusing on that control, the better we get at it. But we often have that rumination as it's got there, and we just let our thoughts run away with themselves. So Viktor Frankl in the book Man's Search for Meaning calls this the last human freedom, the freedom to be able to choose our thoughts. And in his book, he talks about that his experience in the Holocaust, when he was being abused, starved, beaten, tortured, all of that sort of thing. He would imagine himself speaking at the University of Vienna in front of all of his students about his experience. And he said, no matter what they did to me, they weren't ever able to take away my, they weren't ever able to control my thoughts. So he really held on to that. If you haven't read that book, I really recommend Man's Search for Meaning. It's definitely an inspiring one. So I wanted to just have a couple of minutes then. I can't see everyone. I just want to maybe stop sharing for a second, or no, I'll leave it on. I just can't see your faces, but I'm hoping you'll be okay with this. Can everyone just give me a thumbs up if you're happy to do a bit of a control exercise while we're chatting? Awesome. So as I said, everything is always within our control, and whatever we focus our attention on often feels bigger or sounds louder. I've got a clock in my therapy room, and if I ever stop to think about it or listen to it, it just sounds so loud. But it hasn't changed at all. It's just that that's where I'm focusing my attention on. So I encourage you guys to have a moment just to think about when you feel stressed or anxious or whatever it is you feel, just think about where you might experience that, because we're obviously not feeling that in our hands or, the tips of our fingers. So you don't have to answer. It's just for you to have a bit of a think about where might you experience those feelings. And then just see if you can notice how you experience them. So I know when I get stressed or anxious, I feel it in my shoulders, in my chest, in my throat, and it's almost like it sort of really closes up on me. It's all really tight. And I know sometimes I've been so angry that I haven't been able to speak. It's like my voice box closes, and I call it my defense mechanism because I can't say anything stupid if I can't talk. So you might feel it in the same places, or you might feel it somewhere different. And then just now then, I invite you to move your attention just to the soles of your feet for a moment. Just see if you can notice the sensations in the soles of your feet. And you might notice a tingling, or a warmth, or a coolness, or an itching. Whatever you notice, you might now just recognize that these sensations didn't just suddenly appear because we were talking about it. They've actually been there all along. We just weren't paying attention to it. And so our anxious or anger or whatever we were feeling earlier, for me, I was talking about it being in my chest. It has a boundary. I'm not feeling it in the soles of my feet. So we can even be playing around with control just by simply moving where we focus our attention. That's where mindfulness exercises, I'm not going to get you to do any more mindfulness exercises, but that's why they work well. And some people love meditation. I'm not saying you have to meditate, but that's part of why that works well, because it just allows us to gain back control over our thoughts and our feelings. Okay. I didn't mention beforehand, but I'm happy to answer questions as you've got them. I just can't see them. So if Bill or anyone sees questions in the chat and wants to shout them out, feel free. All right, so some of the other ways we might experience anxiety and panic, or any of the stress experiences, we tend to go internal. So often I'll speak to people who say, I said something really silly and I'm really stressed about the people I said it to, and that they're going to think I'm an idiot or whatever that is. And so it's that internal orientation, that internal conversation about how stupid I am. I can't believe I said that, and all the rest, when in fact, the evidence will probably suggest that the minute you said it, it was forgotten by them anyway. They never thought about it for a second afterwards. And we know that because us ourselves, we most often don't then think about what other people say and point out the error in what they say, or think about how stupid it was. So we know the evidence is that 99.99999 times no one's ever going to think about it again. But internal orientation means that regardless of that evidence, we still think about it and ruminate over it. Global thinking is just the sense that these things always happen. Or they never happen. I can never get anything finished, or I bid on clients, or I put proposals in with my clients and I never ever get any new clients. So it's a very global view, rather than acknowledging that there are nuances, and maybe you haven't got 2 or 3 new clients, but you've certainly had other clients as well. And that's a real challenge, I know, for me, because I work one-to-one with clients and I see them face-to-face. I've had to change the way I work. And as part of that, I've actually lost a few clients because not everyone wants to work via Zoom. And it's been really tricky for me. I've had times where I've thought, oh my God, it's always going to be like this. I've lost all my clients. It's always going to be like this, which I haven't. But even knowing that and reminding myself in the time where those thoughts are going around in my head. And the last one is a lack of compartmentalization. So COVID's a big one. That might be our all-encompassing, and I've lost track of every conversation I ever have these days. Always includes COVID at some point as well. So rather than compartmentalizing, even the fact that we might be, I think I'm the only one by the sounds of, stuck in lockdown, but it is just one part of our overall experience, and being able to compartmentalize that and bring out other parts as well. And we might also then be experiencing, so anxiety, stress, panic, these are sort of the highs. We might also be experiencing some of the lows, and the way we might experience them through helplessness or hopelessness, that's us sort of sitting in emotion, just feeling that and constantly ruminating on that. And the thing about emotions is, as we would know, that our emotions, our states, they change constantly every few seconds or so. So if we're sitting in an emotion, that's because we're choosing to sit in it, which can be really hard or we might not like hearing that, I suppose, at the time, but it's one of the challenges is how do we get past that? And I think that's really freeing as well. I know if I've ever sat in anger for more time than I've needed to be able to recognize, oh, okay, the fact that I'm still angry with this person a day later is because I want to be angry with them, is actually quite freeing. So if we're stressed or frustrated with the situation we find ourselves in, or whatever that might be, being able to move past that. We might experience ruminating on our past as well, excessive past orientation. And the last one is that stable attribution, and that's that sense that we're stuck like this forever again. So I had a bad childhood, so this is who I am, or I've always been a smoker, so I'm always going to be a smoker, or my family, I come from a family of addicts, or whatever it might be, therefore I'm an addict. That's that stable attribution, the sense of being stuck like this. And so these are all different ways in which we experience, and we can do all of these sorts of challenges that we might experience, whether it's the anxieties, the stress, or the lowness. So I wanted to just put you guys in a breakout room, or I'll come back to that. Just put you in a breakout room now, if I could please, Bill. And my question to you is just to have a quick conversation about how you do some of these challenges. Firstly, are you experiencing any stress or frustration, or what is your experience? And then what does that look like? What is that experience for you?
How many breakout rooms would you like? How many people in each breakout room?
20, isn't there? So maybe 4 breakout rooms.
Okay, so that'll be about 4 people per room?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Mute myself before I get in trouble.
Fabulous. So
Feel for you, Ellie. I know where you were going.
Amazing. So I might just share my screen again. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you some tools then to be able to just take a moment to create some small daily habits around your own mental well-being. But before we do that, I do understand that this session's being recorded, which is why when we did have that last discussion, I put you guys in breakout rooms. But is anyone comfortable? Does anyone want to share some of the conversations that happened in your particular breakout rooms? I see people's mouths moving and I can't work out if that's because you're on mute, or you don't want to share. But I'm happy, obviously, given the nature of this, we don't have to share, but I definitely heard some really good conversations there. One thing I did hear, which I'll refrain from saying who said it, but it was a really good conversation, is that around the fact that just because someone else is experiencing something doesn't mean we can't also experience something. And I think that's really important. And I put an article on my LinkedIn the other day that came from, I think it was Mamma Mia, where someone was talking about just how horrendous her experience has been working in lockdown or working through COVID. And then she was sort of suggesting, but I should feel happy that I've got a job. So she almost felt guilty that she was feeling anxious or stressed or whatever it was she was feeling when she has a job and other people don't have a job. And I think that conversation that I heard being raised is a really good one, because there is there's never a reason why you shouldn't feel that. Whatever you're feeling is valid. It's just then about how can you, or what can we do to help you get out of that if you don't want to feel it. And of course, every emotion is a good emotion to an extent. It's just how we use it. So that was a really good conversation that I heard. Anything else before we move on?
So, Beck, in relation to that particular aspect, how does one show empathy for others without, I suppose, saying, oh, I'm lucky I'm working, but I understand what you're going through? Because you really don't understand what you're going through because you're not in their situation. So how can one, I suppose, by language or behaviour demonstrate empathy, understanding for someone else?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I don't think we need to say, I understand what you're going through. I think the language could be, that must be really tough, or I can see how that's really tough. And then our empathy is through our actions as well, just checking in. Hey, Con, a couple of days ago, you mentioned that you're going through this. I just wanted to make sure you're okay, or just see how you're doing. So you don't have to say, yeah, I can understand that what you're going through. You might just say, I can, that must be really tough, for example. And the other thing with empathy as well is just using their language. So if they say, oh, I'm really angry, and you say, oh, I can see how that's stressful, then you're not really listening to them. So using their language back, and it just shows that you've heard them, and that in itself is good enough empathy.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else? Okay, so just really quickly, obviously I can't give in this sort of forum any particularly one-to-one advice. These are the sorts of processes I work with my clients on, but there'll be no specifics today. I'm just going to give us some broad-ranging ideas of things that we can do to support our own selves. And I'm going to use the Perma Model of happiness. Has anyone seen the Perma Model before?
Yes, I've written an article on it too. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Adam's all over it. And I really like this just for its sheer simplicity. So the Perma Model comes from positive psychology. So from the positive sort of psychology arm of all of the different therapies. And it's just our 5 parts here. So the first one being positive emotion, then engagement, relationships, meaning, and then finally accomplishment. So we're going to work through all of these today. We're not going to do activities on all of them because I think I only have about, is it about half an hour left, Bill? I think. So we'll probably do 2 activities today, and then I'm going to set you a challenge at the end, which I think that I will join the challenge and we can all do. So the first pillar in the Perma model, as I said, is positive emotion. And it's just about developing learned optimism. And as you can see there, people with learned optimism often conjure up positive feelings faster than pessimistic people. They tend to bounce back from setbacks faster, are able to maintain that internal locus of control that I've spoken about earlier today, and just have a more future positive view. When it comes to optimism, I talk about learned optimism because naturally as humans, we are programmed to be pessimistic. We're programmed to look for the carrot over the stick. And it served us well because if you imagine way back when we were foragers scavenging for food, that if we were so concerned with finding our food, the carrot, that we forgot about the stick, the animal trying to eat us, it wouldn't matter. We'd have no food because the stick would have eaten us. So we are naturally programmed to look for threat, but we can develop that sense of learned optimism. And one of the ways, it's not sexy, it's not fun, but it has some really amazing benefits, and the research is showing how amazing it's been to develop that learned optimism, is just to take moments each day to consider what we're grateful for. And when I work with people, rather than asking them to talk about 3 things they're grateful for, I generally ask them to tell me one thing they're grateful for from the day, one thing they've learned from the day or week, depending on what it is, and one thing they've done that they're proud of. So I always ask a pride one, and that comes later on, which I'll explain as well. I think this is a really great tool when my daughter's a little bit older. I think this is the sort of thing that I'd love to be able to sit around the table and ask everyone around the table, what are you proud of from today? What are you grateful for from today? So just given the time that we've got left, I'm really interested. Does anyone have something that they've either learned today or that they're grateful for that they'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll share. I'm grateful for having friends and family in our lives, because I think when you're going through a lot of uncertainty, it's really nice to be able to reach out to, your family in particular and your friends, just to give you some little bit of TLC. So that's what I'm grateful for. And I do think about that a lot during this COVID times, that it's good that we can still hug and see our family.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little bit jealous of that because I can't hug and see my family, but yeah, definitely that's a beautiful one. Anyone else have anything you want to share?
This is something we've learned. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yeah, anything you've learned or anything you're grateful for?
Well, it isn't so much today, but it's been in this last week that I finally got a chance to meet with the polio services people, and I've learned about some ways to be able to help fix my walking and things like that. So I was really grateful for learning all of that and knowing that there's a way forward.
Amazing. So learned and grateful all in one. I love that one. Anyone else want to share before we move on? Okay, so the next one on our Perma model is engagement. And I'm not talking about engagement with each other. I'm talking about the way we engage with what we do. And so most of you will recognize flow state is all about being fully absorbed in the activities that we're doing that use our skills and that challenge us. So there are many ways to induce flow state. Obviously having clear goals and doing things that help us stretch and learn and grow. Being able to focus on the process and not the end state. So actually enjoying the process of learning, which sometimes when we have so many tasks on our to-do list can be really hard to do, but just actually enjoying that process is really important. And avoiding interruptions. The other thing that's important for flow state, and we had one of these events where we talked about neuroscience, and is just about giving ourselves some mental breaks as well, because we can only really concentrate for a certain amount of time, and the science on that differs depending on who you ask. But certainly if you're more than 90 minutes on one task, you're probably needing a bit of a mental break as well. And coming back to that, having that mental break can really put us in a state of flow. So I wanted to do an activity, which is just going to be a few minutes of inward reflection. And if you prefer, you're welcome to put yourselves on or turn your camera off for this if you like, because I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a second. You can leave your cameras on as well, whatever you prefer. And so I just wanted to start by taking a couple of deep, refreshing breaths. And see if you can hold your connection to that breath from the very moment it starts to the little pause at the top, and then through the exhale. Now just allow yourself to notice what other sensations come up in your body. Don't need to judge them or control them. Just notice them as they come up, they appear. You might be able to notice the sensation of your hair on your head. And again, recognize as you do so, that sensation often feels stronger. But of course it's not. Our hair hasn't suddenly started pulling. That sensation's been there all along. We just haven't noticed it. And allow that to remind you that whatever you notice often feels stronger or sounds louder. And you can now notice sounds. See how many sounds you can notice. You might notice the sound of your computer producing energy or the fan. Recognize that it's been there all along. You might notice smells now or scents. See if you can notice tastes. And as you do that, you might just focus your attention back on your breath again. And take another deep, refreshing breath. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Welcome back. So just a really brief activity, and I'm not going to go into loads of, not going to go too deep in any of our activities today, but just a really good activity that really allows us to refresh our focus so that we can then go back to whatever we're doing and have that flow state. And I think this is particularly important because the more we're feeling a bit anxious or stressed, or even just a little bit blah or low, the harder it is sometimes for us to get into flow state. So having, don't go to sleep. So having these sorts of activities are really important to be able to just allow ourselves that time to go inwards in order to re-energize. And hopefully you're feeling relaxed, but also hopefully you're feeling a little bit energized from that as well. Awesome. So the third one on our list are relationships. And of course, as humans, we are naturally pack animals. We need to feel like we're seen, we're heard, we're loved. And this can be particularly hard in situations like we find ourselves in. Those of us who are in lockdown may not have those connections. But this is the time where we really want to be investing in our tribe and really leaning into the people around us. And when we don't, it often creates this really negative cycle of I'm feeling really low, I don't want to speak to anyone. Then I'm feeling lonely, that's making me feel low, then I don't want to speak to anyone. And we sort of go around in this cycle. Whereas actually what we need to do is really just sort of break that pattern and lean into the the Zoom meeting, not the Zoom meetings, the Zoom parties and all the stuff we get invited to, which last year when COVID was just happening seemed really easy. I'm getting a sense that the longer this is dragging on for, the less we want to do that. So last week, some of my uni girlfriends and I had a Zoom catch up, and it started at 8 o'clock at night because obviously it was after all our kids went to bed. And coming about 7:30, I thought, oh, I can't be bothered. Don't want to do this. But we got on Zoom, and 2.5 hours later we hung up, and it was just the most wonderfully refreshing time. They're all in Melbourne and they're also stuck inside as well. But it felt great to do it. So often the hardest part is actually making the decision to do it. So we're not going to do this activity, but my questions for you are, how do you invest in your tribe and your relationships? And if you're finding yourself stuck in that circle, saying no to everything, perhaps breaking out of that, maybe you want to attend the Friday session with ILP as a way to break that habit if you're feeling a little bit stuck. So the fourth one then is about meaning, and that's just a good way to create a sense of purpose. I love finding out little ways in which we can give back. And of course, giving back has many, many benefits. So obviously increasing our self-esteem, lowering our risk of depression, anxiety, which we're talking about. It's also got lots of physical benefits. So improving our overall heart health, normalizing blood pressure. And of course, giving back doesn't always mean, financial commitments. If there are skills that we've got that we're able to utilize in various different ways, how can we utilize them? And in particular, for some of us, where we might have a little bit more time up our sleeves, being able to utilize them in these sorts of moments to be able to give back. And it just provides the most wonderful sense of joy. So I've been doing where I can lots of free sessions for clients. I've got this little kids group at the moment where kids stuck in lockdown, helping them with different activities and different challenges over lockdown to support their mental health. It doesn't cost me anything, just a little bit of time. And I've got in one group 6 kids, and in another group 8 kids, and they get to have a bit of time. And I feel great for it. So it's just a nice feel-good thing. So again, we don't have time to do this right now, but one thing for you guys to consider is in what ways can you do something to give back over this crazy period as well. And the last one is our sense of accomplishment. And I think for those of us who feel like we're in Groundhog Day at the moment, this one is so important, cultivating a daily sense of achievement. So every single day, having a purpose, something that we want to achieve every single day, so that we get to the end of the day and we feel like we've achieved it. And of course, this is why most of us get that horrible Monday-itis, because what we do is we think, yes, it's Friday, it's the weekend. We get into the weekend, we coast along through our weekend, and we get to Sunday night and we think, oh, bugger, it's Sunday night and now I've got work Monday, and we feel bad about it. And often the reason why we feel bad about it is because we feel like we haven't achieved anything for the weekend. So I always set at least one thing I want to do every single weekend. And during lockdown, I've set myself a goal every single day of something that I want to achieve, even if it's just going for a walk and getting a coffee one day. Another way we can cultivate that sense of achievement is by accessing an emotion called pride. It's not arrogant to be proud. And this is a really important one, because quite often I'll ask someone, what was something that made you proud? And people find it really difficult to answer, because we very rarely access this emotion, partly because we think that it's arrogant to access pride. And of course, it's one of the 7 deadly sins, isn't it? So right from the get-go, we've been told that it's bad, but also we just don't stop to think about it, because every time we achieve something, we don't often celebrate it. We just go on to the next thing. And I think ILP, you guys have done so much in the last year, and hopefully with all the things that you've been achieving, you've stopped to take a moment to be proud of those sorts of things as well, because there's some pretty big ones there. But with all the stuff that you're doing, I imagine it's just right on to the next one, on to the next one. So that's really an important one, and I'd love to finish today. We probably don't have time. I keep looking at my time. We probably don't have time for a breakout room, so I'm going to put you all.
You've got a bit of time, Beck, if you want to do a short one. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to do one last breakout room, and I would love everyone to just share things that they're incredibly proud of. My one thing before I put you in a breakout room, because quite often I'll ask people this question and they'll go, oh, I'm really proud of my parents and how they've coped during lockdown. None of that. It has to be something you've done. What are you proud of? Internal accomplishment. So we'll break up. We'll have the same amount of breakout rooms, and we'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes to go through that. 5 minutes. I'm being a bit tight. I think we have.
All right.
Awesome. So I think we've got everyone back now. Just a quick opening and up to see, is anyone happy to share something that they're incredibly proud of?
Oh, we could have had a bit more time. It was just getting fascinating in our group.
Was it?
Fred was sharing some wonderful story. So I hope, Fred, if you're listening, I hope you're writing it all down. It's wonderful. Our group touched on the notion of accomplishment and being proud of something and sharing it with people, how it can be different depending on your cultural upbringing.
Yeah, that's very true.
In some cultures, it's a natural thing to be proud without going overboard, but in other cultures, it's just something that you don't promote yourself, you don't discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point there, Evelyn. Did you have something you wanted to share as well? Are you happy to share something you're proud of, or would you rather?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about some work I've been doing for secondary school teachers, and why I'm proud of it is because I've actually seen it through and got some results. Because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a great one for starting things, and there it stays in the universe. But they've kept me in line, these young teachers. So it's been good for me. I'm of Italian background, so Fred and I in the group, we were just sharing how different it can be when you're brought up in a British type Melbourne setting.
Yeah.
Where, you know, my dad said to me, no, you can't say that, you know, people don't like you telling them that you're proud you've done something. So that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. And it is a really good point as well. And hence why quite often we don't develop that emotion, or we don't have a well-rounded grasp on that emotion, because we're so used to being told, you know, don't gloat, don't be arrogant.
That's the word I couldn't think of. Yeah, don't gloat.
Yeah. Whereas sometimes that a good amount, a healthy amount of pride is really important as well. Anyone else want to share? Okay. So of course, they're very private, but again, I really encourage you to create a daily habit of that. And as I said, when I work with my clients, I ask them they don't have to write it down. If you're not a writer, don't worry about it, but just to think about something you're grateful for, something you've learned, and something that you're proud of every single day. And I also really encourage you to share that practice with your loved ones as well.
Can I just add to that then, Beck? We also need to be the type of people who, when somebody does share something that they're proud of, that we are encouraging. So when our loved ones say, I'm really proud of this finger painting, we go, that is the best finger painting I've ever seen. And we're encouraging and supportive that way too.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, be the cheerleader of those we love as well. Thank you. So I sent to Bill a workbook that I created for, it's actually not for this because this is the first time, I just did this session, created this session for you guys. So it's not from this session, but it's from a similar, or a part of a session similar to this. And at the back of the booklet that I've sent, it has a 30-day challenge, and just before that it's got a feel good pick a mix. So one thing I love doing with my clients is getting them to create their own feel good pick a mix, things that might be 5, 10, 15 minutes long, some things that might be 30 minutes long, and even things that might be 60 minutes long, and just create your list. And I've broken it down into mind, body, soul, and your task, your challenge over 30 days is to do at least one thing from each of those lists, mind, body, soul, every single day. In the 30 days, so I've got every single day, 30 days in the document. You'll notice I ask you those 3 questions. What are you grateful for? What did you learn? And what are you proud of? And there's also the question, what did you do from your feel good pick a mix? Along with that, there's a scale, and those of you coaches sitting in the room will know we all love a good scale question. I'd love you to just think about where you're at. So as of this moment, how are you feeling? Are you a 10 out of 10, your best self, the best Adam there ever is? Or are you, and sorry, yours is the face that came out that I was looking at when I said it. Or are you feeling like a 1 or 2? And see if you can just track that even every 10 days if you don't want to do it every day. Here comes my cat. And see if you can just move that goalpost so it's getting further and further along and closer to the 10 from where you are now. It doesn't matter if you're starting off at a 1. If you're at a 1, great. Let's see if we can get you to a 2 in the next 10 days, and so on and so forth. So Bill will send out that document to you guys now. But from me, that is it for today. And I just thought we could now open it up to questions or comments, anything that you've got.
Round of applause, yay. Thank you, Beck. And thank you for everybody going into your breakout rooms. I hope you enjoyed that part of the process. Beck, it was interesting. I really enjoyed the few minutes with the eyes closed and just relaxing to break that cycle. One of the questions I was thinking about at the time is, are there other ways that are more, because I think for me, sometimes that's a difficult thing to do, to not get out of your head. And I wonder whether there's other techniques that you might use in order to break the pattern of what you're doing. As an example, one of the things we used to do is when we were teaching people study skills and things like that, we also taught them juggling as an example, so that, you have 55 minutes of study and then 5 minutes of juggling. And the reason for juggling is because when you're juggling, particularly if you're not a natural juggler, is you can't be thinking about anything else. That your brain is completely clear because it's all about the balls in the air. And that was a great way to break away things. I wonder, are there other ways in which you can break the cycle as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be something internal. I often tell people to, you want to create a little bit of lightheartedness and ease about that moment. So it can be watching a funny movie, or watching like a funny clip on YouTube, or it could just be reading or going for a walk, or sometimes I just grab a coffee and sit out on my balcony for 15 minutes. What I would say, just for those of you who are meditators, I don't know who's a meditator in this room and who's not. So it's a funny thing, and I would never say it's a great skill for everyone. If you don't love it, you shouldn't force yourself to do it. But quite often what's off-putting for people is they think the goal of meditation is no thoughts. I have to stop thinking and then I'm meditating and somehow I'm going to nirvana or whatever it is. But in fact, that's not the goal. The goal is just simply being aware of your thoughts. And so if you said, I can't stop my thoughts, it's just simply recognizing, oh, I'm thinking, and then let that go. Because the minute you think, oh, I'm thinking, it actually breaks that thought. But anything where you just can be really mindful. So it might be cooking. I have here, I don't know if you can see it, but I've just got a paint by numbers that I've started, which honestly, I try and listen to music or watch something in the background. I can't paint by numbers and do anything else at the same time. So choose anything you love and apply that to your 5 minutes or 15 minutes.
I think that was where the idea of the coloring in books that for adults came from as well, because you've got to be really meticulous with that kind of stuff as well. That's good. Guys, what we're going to do is we're going to throw it open now to anybody to add any of their own insights, any questions, any ideas you have as well to share with us. These master classes are, I mean, we got a great group of people in the room here. Everybody's got experiences, so we'd like to share that with you. And for those of you that are new, what we'll do is we'll have about 6 or 7 minutes of open discussion, and then we'll make sure we get a happy snap of everybody's smiling faces and a little discussion about where we're going to from here. But just take yourself off mute, or if you want to, you can use your new reactions and raise your hand or just jump in. We're happy to hear from everybody. Ideas or questions?
Hi everyone, Kathy here. I just wanted to say that my favourite one is putting my feet in the grass and counting the blades of grass, because you really want to know how many blades of grass there are around your feet. So with 2 small children, I have those little quiet moments where they're tearing around, but I find that that's something that that helps me with just being present in that moment.
Love that. That's really cool.
Related to that one, and this is to start your mindfulness off in the morning, and it sounds a bit weird, but put your shoes and socks on in a different order. The first one you have to observe, because you'll find that you do it the same way every morning. You put your left sock on, then your right sock on, then your left shoe on, your right shoe. Well, do the right shoe and sock. Sock and shoe. Don't let me dress you. And then do your left one. And what it does is it just gets you out of that routine and into that sort of awareness of your day and what you're doing.
And if you do happen to put your socks on after your shoes, you can go skating around the kitchen.
Oh, Tom Cruise style.
My son is 3 and he loves to do it different every single day, Adam. And so I giggled when you said that, because he will intentionally put things on a different way or on the wrong feet just to make sure that he's got our full attention for it. So it's very interesting.
Ellie said she's been in Ugg boots for months. So put them on, put your left one on first or your right one on first instead.
Yeah, I love that. Everything's a process, hey?
And if you're an obsessive compulsive like me, it's challenging, but it's fun.
Leaning into the process of learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else?
Take that as a nod.
Well, we still have, what's interesting about this, and I'm so delighted that we have a good turnout for this, because as you would have seen from our email that we sent out on Tuesday, we've been hearing things from our members. In the lounge, we had a number of great discussions last Friday around the issue and specific issues, and we had another one as a result of the email we sent out on Tuesday. Somebody coming and opening up to us about what they're going on. So I think the idea here is we need to, as Carrie said at the beginning, take the mask off and somehow look at things ourselves, and ILP is very much about that. So Beck, thank you very much for a terrific session. And I will be editing the recording and everything else for us to put it out and get it out to everyone, along with the book, the booklet, etc. So thank you for that. And I think, to me, we're all suffering in different ways. I had my granddaughter's first birthday was on Tuesday, and she's in Brisbane. I've only seen her 3 times, I think, since she's been born. So it's that kind of process. So very, 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 very valuable and very, very good. I just want to finish up by talking a little bit about what's coming up in terms of master classes, and then I'll turn over to Carrie. Our next master class is in 2 weeks, and I think it's going to be, again, different, but very much about building the business. And our master classes tend to focus on either the personal development, or advance your career, or build your business. And so the next one is actually going to be called Filling the Training Room. How do you fill your training room? And what are some secrets that we can share with each other? And this is applied not just to independent trainers, but to in-house trainers. How do you actually get people to turn up? As many of you may know, when you're doing public programs, it's so difficult. But I think internal people also find a situation that says, even when it's compliance training, how do they get willing learners into the room to actually learn? So we're going to talk about some secrets about that and try to understand a little bit more about what's going on. I don't know that anybody has the answer, but we're going to try to bring some answers to the room through the discussion and things like that. So that's where we're going next time. The other master classes, which I have in my planning processes, is Lyndall Box, who is here with us today, has a monthly learning meetup, very similar to our Friday lounges. And I highly recommend, Lyndall, if you could put up a connection for people into the chat box, that would be really good. What I love about Lyndall's session is she draws in some fantastic learning designers. And while I'm not a learning designer, I go there every month to learn about stuff. And so one of the master classes I'm thinking about putting together is about what's the latest thinking and trends and systems and platforms in learning design, because I think so much has changed. And listening to the experts, share ideas, I want to look at that aspect. Another masterclass we're going to have is got to do with ILP has its own internal legal counsel, Simon Quirk, and I've asked Simon as well as to look at what are the legal aspects that running a learning and development business should be aware of. There's IP, there's other things that happen, and we're going to maybe try to tag team it with some information on what's happening in the insurance industry, because the insurance industry in this last 18 months is completely turned around. It wasn't like it was at the beginning of last year, and that's for a whole variety of reasons, mostly to do with interest rates, which is interesting. Another one that I'm going to have is we've just got a new partner, GMD partnerships in New Zealand, who are the Australian New Zealand representatives for the Kirkpatrick methodology of evaluation. And I see it actually as much more than that. So I want to put something together with that, because I think that our whole idea of learning design and evaluation are the two ends, the beginning and the end of the learning process. And we're also, we had a good question again on the lounge on Friday about what is ILP strategies going forward. And we're probably going to run a special session that really involves that, because one of the things that Carrie and I really want to understand is, what do our members really want? What do you really need to do so we can make sure our strategies are fitting with that as we move forward into the coming years and things like that. So a number of different things coming up. I hope you stay involved. For those of you who haven't been along to our Friday L&D Lounge, it's always a great time to spend an hour on a Friday morning to just connect with each other. It's not just a connection. We load stuff up onto the whiteboard, we vote on it, and we have a discussion around things which are very, very much about what the participants in the room want to talk about. And last week was a particularly fantastic one. So you can join in that on the register for that on the events page. And it's the same link every week as well. So you just put it in your calendar and things like that. So that's enough from me. Beck, thank you again for what you're doing. Thank you to everybody for coming along and working with us today. Carrie, over to you to finish us off.
All right, thanks, Bill. I just wanted to say, I'm going to take a leaf out of Beck's book and say I'm very grateful, to have the opportunity this afternoon just to take some time out and just to breathe. Also, I love connecting with our members, so it's a lovely opportunity to be grateful for doing that. And as Bill said, usually the L&D Lounge is the highlight of my week, where we can just sort of sit back and have a cup of coffee and have a chat to other like-minded professionals. So Beck, the wonderful tips there, which I'm sure we're all going to take away, and I can't wait to see the workbook and achieve all of those goals that you've set us to do. So thank you very much for putting the session together this afternoon. And everybody, thank you for joining us, particularly our newbies, welcome. Thank you to our regulars for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure you've got heaps that you can take away. There's lots of lovely feedback in the chat box, so thank you for that. And if there's anything that ILB can do to support you in your roles, please let us know, because we're here to help you. Thanks, everybody.
And we need the final photo, please. So somebody could do their thumbs up and their smiley faces and all that kind of stuff. I'll get the photo. Everybody go. Yeah. So, all right. Excellent, Con. All right, here we go. Gotcha.
Thanks for that. All right. Have a lovely week, everybody. See everybody soon.
Bye.
Bye.